Saving the life of Long Island medium Theresa Caputo. A story of coming back from facing an invisible danger. The famous Long Island medium, Theresa Caputo, could have been in great danger if she had delayed a little. Recently, she developed symptoms of a rare virus. However, due to awareness, she quickly went to the hospital and sought medical advice. Due to timely treatment, she was cured of a serious infection. Upon returning home, Theresa warned her family and asked everyone to be vigilant so that such a situation could be avoided. Her quick decision and awareness prevented a much bigger danger. Theresa Caputo sat in her cozy Long Island home, flipping through a deck of tarot cards. She had always trusted her intuition, but lately something felt off. A deep sense of unease settled over her. It wasn't a message from the spirit world. This time, it was something more real, more immediate. It started with a headache, then chills. At first, she brushed it off as exhaustion from her recent shows, but the feeling worsened. A tightness in her chest made it hard to breathe, and an unfamiliar weakness spread through her limbs. Theresa's daughter, Victoria, noticed her mother's pale complexion. "Mom, you don't look so good. Maybe you should see a doctor." Theresa hesitated. She hated hospitals. But a voice, one she couldn't ignore, whispered in her mind, "Go. Now." Trusting her instincts, she rushed to the hospital, where doctors immediately ran tests. The diagnosis was shocking, a rare and aggressive virus that could turn fatal if left untreated. The doctors informed her that had she waited even a day longer, the outcome could have been devastating. With swift medical intervention, Theresa made a full recovery. Returning home, she gathered her family and close friends. "Listen," she said firmly, "I've always believed in signs, and I don't ignore them. What happened to me could happen to anyone. Trust your body, trust your instincts, and never take your health for granted." From that day on, Theresa became not just a medium connecting people with the spirit world, but also a voice urging others to listen to their inner warnings. Because sometimes the greatest danger is the one you can't see until it's almost too late. However, in a small town tucked away between rolling hills, there lived a woman named Emma who had always felt a deep connection to the unseen world. Her grandmother had been known in the town for her gift of communicating with spirits, and Emma had inherited this extraordinary ability. She could sense energies and hear whispers from those who had passed on, but she never fully understood the scope of her gift. One evening, as the town prepared for the annual harvest festival, a letter arrived at Emma's doorstep. It was an invitation to a special event, titled "Theresa Caputo Gives Transformational Live Readings, Raising Spirits." Emma had heard of Theresa Caputo, the renowned medium known for connecting with spirits and helping people find closure. The event would take place at the Grand Hall just outside the town. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, and despite her natural skepticism, Emma felt a pull deep within her to attend. The night of the event, Emma entered the hall, which was filled with excitement and anticipation. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as people gathered, some eager to hear from lost loved ones, while others hoped for guidance. The lights dimmed, and Theresa Caputo walked on stage, her presence immediately commanding attention. She greeted the crowd warmly, her energy contagious as she spoke of her gift and the importance of healing. As the readings began, Emma watched in awe. One by one, people were called to the stage. Theresa connected with their loved ones, bringing messages of comfort, love, and closure. It was a powerful experience, but Emma's heart pounded as she sat there. She had always been reluctant to share her gift with others, unsure of how people would react. Then, to her surprise, Theresa's gaze swept across the crowd and landed on Emma. She walked toward her with a smile, sensing something unique about her. "You, my dear," Theresa said, her voice soft but confident, "you have a gift, don't you? The spirits have been whispering to you, haven't they?" Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was as if Theresa could see into her soul, knew her fears, and understood her reluctance to embrace her abilities. The crowd around them fell silent, and all eyes were on Emma. "Yes," Emma whispered, her voice trembling, "but I've always been afraid to fully embrace it." Theresa nodded knowingly. Fear is the greatest barrier to healing, both for yourself and for others. The spirits are here to help, to guide, but you have to be willing to listen. You are not alone in this journey. With a gentle touch, Theresa placed her hand on Emma's shoulder. In that moment, Emma felt a rush of energy, a connection to something larger than herself. It was as if the veil between the living and the dead had lifted, and for the first time, she felt truly aligned with her gift. The crowd remained silent as Emma closed her eyes, and suddenly, messages began to flood her mind. She could hear the voices of the departed, feel their presence surrounding her. She opened her eyes, and with newfound clarity, began to speak. "I'm hearing from a woman. She's telling me she's your mother," Emma said, pointing to a woman sitting in the front row. "She says she's proud of you for keeping her memory alive and wants you to know she's always with you." The woman gasped, tears welling up in her eyes as she recognized the message. It was a moment of profound connection and healing, and Emma knew in her heart that this was her calling. The spirits were not just whispers in the dark, they were voices of love and healing waiting to be heard. Theresa smiled at Emma, her eyes sparkling with understanding. "You've just begun, my dear. The spirits have much more to share through you." The rest of the night passed in a blur as Emma continued messages from the other side, bringing comfort and closure to those around her. By the end of the evening, she had shed her fear and embraced her gift, knowing that she had a role to play in helping others heal. As the crowd dispersed, Theresa approached Emma once more. "Remember, the spirits are always with you. Trust them, and they'll guide you on this journey." Emma nodded, her heart filled with gratitude. She had come to the event unsure of what to expect, but she left with a sense of purpose, ready to step fully into her role as a healer, knowing that the spirits had not only raised their voices, but had also transformed her life forever. And as she walked out into the cool night air, Emma could hear the faint whispers of the spirits, a soft reminder that she was never alone. However, Robert had always been a skeptic. The idea of mediums, spirits, and messages from the beyond never sat well with him. But as he neared the end of his battle with terminal cancer, something inside him shifted. If there was any chance to connect with his late wife, Lisa, he wanted to take it. That's how he found himself sitting across from Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, in a cozy, warmly lit room. Her signature blonde hair framed her face as she studied him with her deep, knowing eyes. "Okay, so right away, I'm feeling a very strong female presence," Theresa began, her Long Island accent thick yet comforting. "She's been waiting for you." Robert inhaled sharply. "Lisa?" Theresa nodded with a soft smile. "She's showing me pink roses. That's your anniversary, right?" Robert's eyes widened. Lisa had always loved pink roses, and he had brought them to her every year on their anniversary. Even after she passed, he still left them at her grave. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Yes, every year." Theresa's expression turned serious. "She says you've been scared. About what's coming. She wants you to know she'll be there." Robert swallowed hard. He had spent months wrestling with the fear of the unknown. What happens after death? Would he be alone? "She says it's peaceful, like a warm embrace," Theresa continued. "She wants you to stop worrying. You're not leaving, you're going home." A deep sense of calm washed over him. The weight he had been carrying for so long seemed to lift. Theresa smiled. "She's showing me a beach. Did you two have a special place?" Robert chuckled through his tears. "Montauk. We always said we'd retire there together." Theresa's eyes softened. "She says you will. In a different way. She's waiting for you, Robert. And she says, don't forget the pink roses." For the first time in months, Robert felt at peace. He wasn't afraid anymore. As he left Theresa's home, the sky above him was painted in hues of pink and orange, just like the roses Lisa loved, and he knew, when his time came, she'd be there, waiting. However, it was a chilly autumn afternoon in Long Island when Michael finally decided to visit Theresa Caputo, the famous medium. He had spent years debating whether to seek her help, afraid of what he might hear, or worse, what he wouldn't. But today, something inside him whispered that it was time. As he stepped into Theresa's cozy reading room, the smell of sage and lavender filled the air. Her warm smile put him at ease, but his hands still trembled slightly. "Michael, sweetheart, your energy is strong today," Theresa said as she sat across from him. "There's someone who's been waiting to talk to you for a long time." Michael swallowed hard. He knew exactly who it was. Theresa closed her eyes for a moment and then nodded. "I see a little girl. She's around 6 or 7. Beautiful curls, big brown eyes. She's holding a stuffed bunny. She says she used to take it everywhere." Michael felt his heart stop. "That's my daughter, Lily." His voice broke. She passed away in an accident 5 years ago." Theresa's expression softened. "She's telling me she never really left you, Michael. She says you still tuck in her bunny at night." Tears streamed down his face. It was true. Every night, he placed Lily's stuffed bunny beside her framed photo before going to bed. "She wants you to know she's happy," Theresa continued. "She says you don't have to feel guilty. The accident wasn't your fault." Michael clenched his fists. He had been driving that day. He had looked away for just a second. That second had changed everything. "She's showing me a playground," Theresa said. "You used to push her on the swings, right?" Michael nodded, his throat too tight to speak. "She says you stopped going there after she passed. But she wants you to go back. Not for her, but for yourself." Michael wiped his eyes. He had avoided that park for years, unable to face the memories. But now, for the first time, he considered it. "She loves you so much, Michael," Theresa said gently, "and she's always with you." The room felt lighter, as if the weight of grief had lifted just a little. Michael exhaled, a deep breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace. Lily wasn't gone, she was just beyond the veil, watching over him. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to start living again. However, Theresa Caputo sat in her cozy reading room, candles flickering as the scent of sage filled the air. Across from her sat a woman named Linda, her eyes filled with sorrow and anticipation. "I feel a strong presence," Theresa said, closing her eyes. "A man. He's showing me something mechanical, like a large metal structure. Does that mean anything to you?" Linda gasped, her hands trembling. "My brother Daniel, he worked as an elevator technician. He died in an accident." Theresa's eyes fluttered open. "He's here. He's showing me that day. He was inside the elevator shaft, working on something when..." She paused, wincing. "It fell. He was trapped." Tears welled up in Linda's eyes. "Yes, it crushed him. But I always wondered, was he scared? Did he feel pain?" Theresa nodded, listening to the unseen voice. "He says it happened so fast. He didn't have time to be afraid. He wants you to know he's okay now. He's laughing. He says, 'Tell her I still hate elevators, though.'" Linda let out a watery chuckle. "That sounds like him." Theresa smiled. "He's at peace, but he's worried about you. He says you keep blaming yourself, but it wasn't your fault." Linda wiped her tears. "I told him to take that job. I thought it was a good opportunity." Theresa reached for Linda's hand. "He says, 'Sis, it was my choice. I don't want you carrying that guilt. He wants you to live your life without regrets.'" Linda took a deep breath. "Thank you, Theresa. I feel like I can finally let go." The candles flickered once more, and Theresa knew Daniel had said his final goodbye. However, Theresa Caputo, the famous Long Island medium, had seen many spirits in her lifetime. But never before had she been called to channel someone so young, just 7 months old. When she received the call from the Wilson family, She hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure?" she asked, gripping her phone. "A baby?" "Yes," Mrs. Wilson's voice wavered. "Our son Lucas. He passed unexpectedly last month. We just need to know he's okay." Theresa took a deep breath. She had spoken to countless spirits, but an infant? How would he communicate? What messages could he possibly share? Still, she agreed to visit the Wilsons' home. The moment Theresa stepped inside, she felt a shift in the air. The tiny nursery, filled with stuffed animals and soft blue blankets, held an energy that sent shivers down her spine. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "He's here," she whispered. Mrs. Wilson gasped, clutching her husband's arm. Theresa furrowed her brows. "He's showing me a rattle. He loved his rattle, didn't he?" Mrs. Wilson nodded tearfully. "It was his favorite. He never let go of it." A small giggle echoed in Theresa's mind, like the sound of a baby laughing. She smiled. "He's happy. He's saying he still hears you sing to him at night." Mrs. Wilson covered her mouth, tears streaming. "I do, every night." Theresa's face softened. "He doesn't want you to be sad. He says when the wind chimes ring, it's him." Mr. Wilson, who had remained quiet, suddenly gasped. "The wind chimes on our porch. They've been ringing even when there's no wind." Theresa nodded. "That's Lucas, letting you know he's still with you. A mother's goodbye." Mrs. Wilson sobbed but smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Lucas. Mommy loves you so much." Theresa felt the warmth fade, the little giggle growing distant. The energy in the room shifted back to normal. She opened her eyes and exhaled. "He's at peace," she assured them, "and he'll always be with you." As she left, a gentle breeze stirred the wind chimes on the porch. The Wilsons gasped, but Theresa just smiled. Lucas was home. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe.